This poem is called Secret Milk. This is the last poem I wrote, actually, in New York, just before I came here. As the ice sublimates and is lost, all that is left is the dirt. Ronald Greeley. It is a glorious summer day in New York. For a brief moment, I depart the cool world of air conditioning for a natural walk, brisk and full of encounters, like the angelic Jamaican nurse who taught me how to shoot insulin. Now I can stick a silent needle into the flesh of my thigh and become one with my father in his underwear. Who is that drunken misfit who grunts at me, sitting permanently on the sidewalk in front of the supermarket on 107th Street? I sit in a sugar-free salon eating chickpeas with Milan Kundera, Gaston Bachelard, Heinrich Boll, and Roberto Gonzalez Echeverria. They find New York charming beyond their expectations. I explain it's all an illusion, that everyone is dead or a commodity. We are trying to demagnetize the population, spray the celebrity cockroaches in their breeding grounds, create a sanctuary for chimpanzees before the memory of village women is completely destroyed. In a silver bubble over the red vastness of the Sahara Desert, someone is trying to establish a friendlier relationship with our planet. Even in Mongolia, hunting with eagles has become a tourist attraction. We are all cultural relics trying to free ourselves from melancholy. Like the squid, we expel our ink and grow in the black night, nourished by solitude. Snow composed of water is black, despite our eyes. Anaxagoras. That's an old Greek philosopher. Don't drink barium today, my sweet. Let the tumors rest. Something is eating away at the surface of Jupiter's most distant moon. In my heart, an ocean of salty water.
Yeah.
Okay, this is not a poem, this is a definition of a word I love, Akashic, which comes from the Sanskrit, and I couldn't find it in an English dictionary, so I created my own definition, but I want to pass it on to you because it's bigger than just the meaning of a word. Akashic, from the Sanskrit akash, towards the shining, manifestation, etheric, sky speech, the hidden meaning of the hidden meaning, the psychic keep, the unwritten history of humankind, past, present, and future. God's book of remembrance, the universal radio, the subliminal cassette, the cloud doctrine, diaries of the radar, etc. The Akashic records are nothing less than human thought preserved as our radio waves in the ether. An adept or receiver sufficiently tuned to these vibrations would then theoretically be able to read these records, even listening in to past or future thoughts or conversations. From poetry to prophecy, from light, clairvoyance. Kathmandu Dream Piece. Trying to describe Kathmandu is like making a cross-section of sky and clouds, indefinable as the mysterious blue which hovers above our ancient memories, ever-changing as the cloud forms advancing over the valley. Dreams of dragon claws dissolving like sugar in the oracular waters of oriental wisdom, only to reform in great mushrooms of future holocaust. Endless cycles of death and rebirth figure everywhere in the storied pagodas. Statues of gods encrusted with orange puja powder, or brass figures shining like mirrors from the million hands which do daily homage to the cosmic spirit. There where the common greeting is Namaste, I bow down to the God which is in you, where the dawn comes up over the peaks of crystal and ice, hastened by the sound of bells ringing everywhere. And the great turning wheels of the Tibetans keep constant reign over the balance of an errant planet where even the most humble carrier in rags walking over the icy moraines demonstrates that true dignity is born of poverty and can never die under an unlittered sky. I remember ripped prayer flags flying in the mountain wind, and suddenly there was snow. I remember nights full of candles burning on every doorstep and roof ledge, and then the stones, every one of which has its own history. Nor is there any flower without its place in the garland of giving. If you spend any time in Kathmandu, you will see a man wearing a brown overcoat, whatever the season, whose fingers are covered with cheap glittering rings, and who carries a rolled-up newspaper out of which he will give you a picture of Krishna playing his flute, or Durga with a necklace of human skulls riding resplendently on a lion. Or it may be Shiva, Lord of Beasts, sitting in meditation on a tiger skin, not unlike the sadhus who come to worship at the shrines of Pashupatinath as part of their never-ending pilgrimage. On the back of the picture, he has written painstakingly in English his celebration of the day in honor of the god. This will be the global emperor, who, when he knew I was leaving for Europe, prepared letters for the political leaders of the West, advising them that defense of globe is our main concern. He will be endlessly on his way to the temple, where he will present a fruit to Lord Narayan, hoping that one day the fruit will dissolve there without being taken by monkey or hungry human. For it is only when the untouched fruit dissolves completely that the global emperor will consider that true benefit may accrue to the human race. Then it may be said that the god himself has taken it. I remember I was just walking down the road and across the rice fields where people were working with hoes and pickaxes, all women in a row. The old men together could barely push their load over the bridge, and all the others carrying loads of vegetables or refrigerators on their backs. I was past the road and on top of the hill, and the clouds, they were carrying the sky, and we were dreaming of thunder. I remember a detail of melting snow, and at the jeweled edges of brittle ice, a brown faded flower shines golden in the sunlight at the top of a giant profile, like a broken nose cresting the horizon. And then the young Newari girl was married to a tree. I remember pretending to sleep while outside a great slaughter was taking place, a hecatomb of water buffaloes killed by the king's men, and the king's palms dipped in the blood of sacrifice printed on a white cloth. I remember being assaulted by hostile radios, hysterical laughter, and a babble of foreign tongues. I remember the blood in the streets, awaiting the last propitious rains, and then the sky full of kites, repenting of such ill-begotten caresses. And I implore the secret heart's rhetoric to spray this night with its golden sheen. In the memory of parchment unrolled, and the sound of muffled drums calling us to unspeakable acts there on the shores of some fuming river, solitary and unknown, while pretending to fall asleep over the maps of future possibilities. Imagine all this perfumed with urine, and then another busload of tourists appears, as if dropped from the sky, with cameras trained on each other as they stand in the marketplace, afraid of the cows and what is hidden within. For them, it is only a stopover, a moment of reality between closing walls of industrial fantasy. But for the one who stays long enough to know the God within, for the one who learns to bow, if only once, for that one, the dream will never die. Here as a member of the Amsterdam Dichter Circus, because I think I was the only foreigner that was ever invited during my stay here, which was a few years. I lived in many cracked houses and all kinds of things, and I thought it was wonderful that they invited me in, you know. So I performed that Dichter Circus. That means Simon Vinkenog, Hans Plump, Johnny the Self-Kicker, and other people.
It was a period of kind of wild and open days in Amsterdam. You know, it's hard to remember because we've grown a little bit conservative.
Were you here in
here.
those days, actually?
I was there actually in '79 and '80, and but again, you're back here in Amsterdam. What's your general impression about the changes in the years since you've been here?
I don't know. I can't see them quite. Just, of course, people I knew before are older. Well, thank God a lot of them are still alive, and I guess there are at least 2 new generations in the last one generation. And just like every place else in the world, you miss certain things from the past unless you never knew them. So I'm trying to get used to using the cell phone, which I never did before, and you know, it's good for receiving calls. That's good. You know, I mean, on the park, I hope nobody calls me now. But I don't know. I can't see any great changes. But I guess if you know, the people who are here, you know, could tell me that there are changes. I guess the Melkweg is still here, and the Paradiso. I don't know if they operate quite the same way. New audiences and probably new performers.
So when you were living in Amsterdam, it was kind of the wide open. Proletariat,
well,
communal period.
It felt wide open. I knew Carl Jasper Grodeveld, who started the Provo movement, you know, wonderful people, and always found a warm welcome here.
Now, since then, you've made a lot of films around the world, actually. I've seen only one of them, the Kumbh. I was in India. A terrific film, some of the most incredible footage I've ever seen. How did you make that film?
Well, I went to 3 Kumbh Melas. You know, they occur every 12 years, but actually there's one every 3 years in one of 4 places. So the first Mela I went to was in Allahabad in '77, and that was an incredible experience, of course, being the first time I was in a Mela, and I took a lot of still photographs. I went to the one in Ujjain, another great Mela. They're all great, but I mean, you know, I just remember each one in a special way. And I also took stills there. When I came to Hardware in 1986, somebody was willing to help me out financially. If I had just come here the way I was going to do it, to India, as cheaply as I could, I couldn't get the support, but somewhere I said I was going to make a film on the advice of a good friend, and then somebody got interested who was a good friend of mine and gave me enough money to buy 2 video cameras and to take an assistant, and then we went to Hardwar and stayed for about 3 months, which is from almost the first day that it starts till the last sweeper goes home. And so we shot about 60 hours there, and over the last 10, 12, almost up until the time of a full cycle, that would be a full 12-year cycle, the best I could really manage was to show rushes from the footage, which I had 2 2-hour clips that were at least contained a lot of my favorite scenes, but not really edited in a cinematic way. And then there was a young man named Morgan Harris, who was 16 when I came back, and he loved the film and wanted to work with me. Suddenly, after 11 and a half years, he was 11 and a half years older, like almost 28, and had learned his craft quite well as an editor, and we had a beautiful telepathic relationship editing the film together. He's the editor, actually, and he helped put the sound on and do all the kind of cinematic cuts, and so then we finished the film in a relatively short time out of all that work. So now it's out from Mystic Fire Video, and they even got out a PAL version, which is available of that film. And well, I mean, you know, so far so good. Everyone who's seen it is very responsive, and you know, I don't know, there's never a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but I mean, I'm hoping to get a call from Hollywood, you know, to tell me they just want to give me some money. I don't want to become a Hollywood director, and it's not my thing. I'm a poet, and it's a poet's film. And doing the soundtrack and being able to do it as a poet, plus the images, is very different from trying to do, say, a travel film for National Geographic style, you know, conversation. So I had that satisfaction as well.
Well, it sounds a little like that wonderful film called When We Were Kings.
Oh, that's a great film.
Great film where it's set on a guy's back room for 11 years also, and then...
Yeah, and that it won an Academy Award, and Muhammad Ali, of course, you know, as one looks, I mean, he's a very beloved character, but he was quite controversial in the beginning. Now he's seen as a, you know, a great monument of American history, but you see how you know, the kind of dues he paid and how great he really was in that fight and in everything else that he stood for. Yeah, I love that film.
One of my favorite films that year. In fact, it stays vivid.
The Buena Vista Social Club film that Vendors shot with Ry Cooder, you know, getting these old Cuban musicians, is a film that I think was probably shot in a similar way. I mean, I don't know, I think it's that video taken to film, probably because of the way it looks. And Ry Cooder, in fact, through the musician John Hassel, has seen my film. John gave it to him for his birthday, and he told me, oh, Ry just flipped out over the film, so I'm looking forward to actually seeing him, meeting him. But I love that film and the Cuban musicians who were here at the Carré Theater, I mean, you know, at some point in the film. And then Carnegie Hall, they're coming back to New York again with 3 hit records, you know, at 75 or 80. For the first time, they started doing solo records that are also big sellers, you know.
In fact, I listen to it every night. The latest vocal one from Abraham Ferreira. Yeah. Incredible piece. Well, Ry Cooder seems to have a great talent for finding those kind of people and for being a great session man. Yeah, I didn't realize that he had also done the soundtrack for Paris, Texas, an early Vendors film, and they seem to be, you know, good friends and associates, so... Well, Ira, thanks for talking with us today. Yeah, well, that's not about the film, but, you know, how did I make it? I don't know. I mean, I tell you, I was there for 3 months. I got sunstroke in the middle, and there's a lot of incredible stories I could tell you of things happening there and happened afterwards, but, you know, you don't have 2 hours to talk to me. But you know what it is? It's I think for every filmmaker who hasn't finished the film he thought he had in him, 11 years... Yeah, no, this thing, and then also, I mean, as a poet and a person who's done a lot of other things, CDs and other, you know, things. There's a Modern Traveler CD that was done by Sub Rosa in Brussels, and I hope it will be re-released now that they, you know, are sort of out of the picture after the contract ran out and everything else. This film, for me, is like the crown jewel, you know, and I'm glad I lived to make this film. You know, because the importance of the Nagas and all of that stuff in there of those great characters that are in the film is something that will stand forever. And probably those Melas, even if they keep going on for another 100 years or 1,000 years, will change radically, you know, as everything does, and as we get ready for the future. But if I had a choice of going up in a spaceship, you know, besides the guys who can control the ship, with one other person to land somewhere out in the galaxy, I would bring a Naga.